Hello, Sarah here. I'm here to have another conversation for the sake of ourselves. So the conversation I'm here to have with you today is a conversation around collaboration versus competition. Collaboration versus competition. And we're going to have this conversation inside of both the relationship with yourself, a collaborative versus competitive relationship with yourself, and have this conversation also in the framework of the relationships around you, the relationships with the people around you, and the relationships with life in general. Is it a collaborative relationship and framework or a competitive relationship and framework? So, let's first take a look at what is collaboration to you? If, there I am saying this word collaboration. What does collaboration mean to you? Do you want to roll your eyes about collaboration? Like, how are you in group projects? I know I did not like group projects. I tend to be independent, go person and immersed in my own way. And group projects are a new thing to me that has a lot of value and growth as I expand my muscles in collaboration. So collaboration might already occur for you in a certain way. You might already, have a certain amount of experience with collaboration. You might already be a pro and masterful in collaboration. You might already be someone who sees the value that collaboration offers. Or you could be somebody that actually sees that collaboration, it gets in the way and get in there and get it done. Collaboration has pros, it has cons. And then there's competition. What does competition occur like to you? What is competition to you? What is your experience with competition? Is it something you love and you love to take on so you can compete and get that feedback of yes, I did well. I won, or I placed here, or, oh my gosh, I didn't do well. I failed. I sucked, or this spurs me to do better, or this keeps me on a pathway of growth and just going forward. Okay. And maybe you're somebody who sees the value of competition and competitiveness and to see what that makes available. Or you could be somebody that sees the cons or, where it's not in service competition. So it's collaboration and competition. Neither of them are inherently right or wrong. They do each offer something, and in different circumstances and scenarios, depending on the framework, one might be better served than the other. But when we're going to be talking about today is this idea of relationships, the relationship with ourselves, the relationships with the people around us, and our relationship with life. And, I think there's room and value for both collaboration and competitiveness to live inside of very set frameworks that are grounded and rooted with what serves you and what your intention is, first and foremost. So let's go back to what is collaboration. So I don't have my tablet in front of me right now to look up the definition, even though I love to look up definitions, but I'm not going to do that right now. But look for yourself. What is collaboration to you? So to me, collaboration is, working with, meeting with. It's inclusion. It's including all the parts and pieces, and where everybody, nobody's left behind. We're all in this together. Everybody has value. Everybody has something to offer, and we are collaboratively together with inclusion, all putting all of our kind of strengths or, talents or thinking on the table so that we can have an amplified, expanded product or outcome or goal met or whatever we're up to, that we can, fulfill on something bigger than ourselves together with no person left behind. That's what collaboration kind of occurs like for me. And competition. Now let's look at competition. What is competition to you? How does that occur for you? What would you define it as? To me, competition is, there is a winner, there is a loser, there is somebody ahead and somebody behind. There is, progress. It's individual, it's against, it's versus, it's, we're each in our own lane. We stay in our own lane. Whereas collaborative to me is we're all in the same lane together, collectively working on something. So that's how I would differentiate collaboration and competition. So that's collaboration and competition. Now, when we take a look at our relationship with ourselves and, this fabulous, fantastic, beautiful, great relationship that we are cultivating with ourselves, what type of way of being with ourselves, collaboratively or competitively, do you see would bring real value to yourself? Now, when I say that, it's not to say both don't. Like there is a time and a place for each of these at the table. There's a time and a place for collaboration, and there's a time and a place for some competitiveness. But I would say that competitiveness is meant to stay over with ourselves, meant to stay over with me, myself, and mine. That's what I'm competing against. And you get to compete against you, yourself, and yours. You don't have to compete against the people around you or the other people in your life. Really, like, you are in your own lane for sure. But you're more like in your own world with your own experiences, your own past, everything your skills, your strengths, your weaknesses, your areas of growth, your essence, your nature, your life force, your values, your wants, your goals, your dreams, all of the things. Like, it is not the same as the person beside you. So, to compete up against the person beside you, just oftentimes doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's just going to kind of be this pitfall or trap that isn't necessarily going to serve you or forward you in the overarching theme of things in the long run. So if you take a look at yourself, there you are. You've had the life that you've had. And if you're going to compete against anybody, compete against yourself, compete with yourself. But I'd really like to actually invite you, instead of even competing with yourself, bring this idea of collaboration with yourself. Like, what would it look like to be collaborative with yourself? What would it look like to include all the parts and pieces of yourself, to, bring all your past selves to the table, to bring all of the past versions of yourself and, the past experiences of yourself to the table, because it has value and offerings and teachings. Like, you've experienced a lot in your life up until now. You have learned a lot in your life up until now. All of those parts and pieces of you, what would it be like if you gave all of that a voice? What if you gave all of that a say at the table, all of that value and contribution at the table to inform you, not to direct you, but to inform you of what you want, what you don't want, what you value, what you're looking for, what your dreams are, what you wish for, how you wish things to be, what you would love, where you're going, what you need, what would be in service for you. Like, all of those parts of yourself have a lot of real value. And if you go into kind of competition mode, sometimes with that, we want to just get ahead of ourselves and go forward to ourselves and discount all of what we were and all of what we were, what we had experienced, and like almost cut it off and sever, like, in moving forward, where you can. And there are times and places for it. So I don't want to make this such a black and white conversation as if, it's always collaborative and never competitive, because there is a real value to bring competitiveness with yourself and with me, myself, and mine, and bring a competitive way with that, and play games and, have experiences that help me grow, rise, reach, cultivate, and expand. There is a value. But at the very core of my relationship with myself, there I am, the very core of my relationship with myself, if I am wanting this really great, beautiful, connected, loving relationship with myself, because it has value to bring to me, because it has arms around value and groundedness, that includes all the parts and pieces of myself, where I get to work with myself and meet myself right where I am, and include all of my past, because my past has value and contribution, just like all of my future has value and contribution, like all of those future selves, like, all the eras and seasons of my life. There's a me that lives and exists, that, has dreams and goals and wants. And by including all of those parts of me at the table as well, it gets to inform me. It doesn't need to direct me, but it does get to inform me of what I dream for, what I long for, what I want, what I'm working towards, what's worthwhile to me, what captivates me, what inspires me, what motivates me, what I want to invest in for the sake of myself, so including all of my past selves and all of my future selves and all of the current me, bringing all of that to the table and working collaboratively with all of myself, that all of the parts of myself have value. All of the parts of myself have a voice. All of the parts of myself have experience to offer, to inform myself what I want, what I need, who I am, what my values are, what my dreams are, what my wishes are, what direction I might want to take, where I might want to, spend my time, energy, and effort, where I want to invest in, where I want to, focus on and dig into, where I might want to challenge myself, where I might want to grow, where I might want to reach, So being collaborative with myself and including all the parts and pieces of myself. And, and when I say that, like, it can be quite uncomfortable, because that does include all the parts and pieces of ourselves. That does include, the experiences that maybe we aren't proud of. It does include, the versions of ourselves that we have grown out of. Like, there's versions of myself, like, I'm really glad and thankful that I have grown out of that. I don't really love remembering me in that version, but like making peace with that version and seeing the value that that version offered and the experience that that version had to inform me of, what is important to me and what I do love and who my favorite self is. That's valuable information to, ongoingly remember and collaborate with, I find has value. So there's this invitation of taking a look for yourself. Do you tend to come from a collaborative relationship with yourself or a competitive relationship with yourself? Which one really serves you? Which one does give you value? Which one does allow for you? Which one gives you grace? Which one gives you full self-expression? Which one gives you freedom? Which one really has you, meet yourself right where you are? Because, we are flawed. We are going to ongoingly be flawed. We're continually working with ourselves and meeting ourselves where we are, and ideally cultivating ourselves to the most expanded, beautiful versions of ourselves that we want to be, self-actualized and self-expressed. But there we are in our process of growth. We are going to have our underbellies sometimes. We're going to have our shadows. We're going to have, our insecurities or our weaknesses, or the areas that we're growing are sometimes going to be kind of loud in front of us. And it is going to be uncomfortable, and it is going to be a bit vulnerable. But it does serve us. It does. It's very honest. It's very real. It's very true to ourselves. And so when we can, really be with all of ourselves and include all of ourselves, we get all of the accurate information to work with ourselves. And I guess that's the value that collaboration can bring, is it allows you to be with yourself in a very distinct way, that allows all the parts and pieces of you through. And although it can be uncomfortable, there can be some discomfort. It can take a bit to get used to and to make peace with, but there is a great value. So, I do invite you to just play and try on. What would a collaborative relationship with yourself look like? What kind of value would a collaborative relationship with yourself bring? What would it offer? How would it serve? How would it enhance? How can you utilize a collaborative relationship with yourself? And then there you are, a competitive relationship with yourself, again, can be brought in, and it can be brought in within a framework of really having your back. I notice myself, I love to play games. Like, I love to make little challenges for myself, and and in a way it is a bit competitive, because I am looking to grow and expand and to be a bigger, expanded version of myself with new skills, so that there is a competitive way there. But I tend to bring a collaborative effort up in that competitive way, because again, I am not competing outside of myself. I'm not competing with the person beside me. I'm not competing with my neighbor. I have lived a little bit of an out of the box life that when I go into a comparison or a competitive mode, I can quickly go to comparison and comparing myself to another person. And it's like, it's not even apples and oranges. It's like apples to cats. Like, it's like, it's just two entirely different things. Like, I tend to have, sometimes I can have very out of the box, wants and desires for my future. The things that motivate me are really not the same as the person beside me sometimes. And so to compare myself to them doesn't even make sense, because we're not even up to the same things or to the same goals. And again, neither one is better or worse. We each get that autonomy, agency, and freedom and sovereignty to say what is important to us and what matters to us and how we want to live our lives and how we want to utilize this life. And, I might be odd, I don't know, or I might be normal, I don't know, but I have my own things that how I've chosen to live my life, and a lot of people haven't chosen to live the same kind of life as me, and that's okay. But if I'm going to then go and compare myself to a person that's made different choices or has different things that motivate them, our lives are going to look totally different. Our actions are going to look totally different. Our growth is going to look totally different. What we're investing in is going to look totally different. So if I'm going to go compare myself and get competitive with the people around me, it's not necessarily going to serve me at all for many reasons. A, it's likely going to disempower me right away. Like as soon as I go to comparison, it's like, whoa, I'm not there. But really, being there wouldn't serve me for what I'm up to. So that's not overly helpful. It just kind of gets me confused and, in a bit of a disempowerment spiral and noticing my lack or what I'm not or things like that. So competitive outside of myself doesn't really serve me at all. Competitive outside of myself can actually be quite a pitfall for me to fall into. And I have gone there, I have definitely more often than I would love or liked, and it was very uncomfortable to go and, come from a comparative place to the people around me when that competitive aspect of myself gets in. And that doesn't work. Again, it's like apples to cats. So no. So, if I'm going to compare myself to anything, let's compare myself to apples to apples. Well, compare myself to myself, like there I am, here I'm going. How about I bring the comparison over where I am, compare myself to how I was in my earlier years, compare myself to, where I was and where I'm going and where I am in that spectrum. And, I can play competitive natured games inside of that and create challenges and create games and create kind of goals. And, I like to even create little prizes for myself or little point systems, because that's me. I sometimes operate in fun, weird ways to motivate myself in my neurodivergent brain. But this idea of but competitive isn't my overarching theme of my relationship. Competitive is something I can bring in for some playfulness or for some movement or from some growth. So I am using competitiveness. Competitiveness isn't using me. It's not like I am stuck in a competitive framework. It's like I will bring in competitiveness when I see it would serve me, put it into a framework, and utilize competitiveness in a way that serves my goals, serves what I'm up to, and serves my being. So, take a look for yourself. Are you using competitiveness in a way that serves you, or are you being used by competitiveness in a way that it has you, it's your default way? You might get stuck in a competitive, competing against the other people around you, or comparing yourself with the other people around you. And again, that's apples to cats. You are your own person. You have had your own life, your own experiences, your, all of the things that have happened and that haven't happened. You have different dreams, different goals. You likely have very different values. You likely have very different perspectives, very different natures and skills and assets, and, very different destinies to fulfill on, for lack of a better word. You have entirely different lives. You're in different lanes. So be in your lane, own your lane, be accountable and responsible for your whole lane, for your whole being, and work within that. And I really do invite you into the opportunity that of background, overarching, collaborative theme of the relationship with yourself. See what that makes available. See what collaborating with yourself does. See how collaborating with yourself works. One thing about collaboration, it does require, working together. So in the idea, and I know it sounds strange, working with yourself, because like there you are, you're just this singular unit of yourself, but really you are a vast dimensional being. So, you can play and use your imaginative creative brain if you want here, and actually have check-ins with yourself, actually have touch points with yourself, actually have, group meetings with yourself of hey team, hey, all of my past selves, my present selves, my future selves, what are we up to here? What are we getting up to? Where are we going? What do we want? Where are we growing? What matters to us? What is our future wants and plan? Hey, future selves, where do we really want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And not attached to specific outcomes, but, ways of being or experiences. What do you want to be experiencing in 10 years and 20 years and 25 years and how many ever years you say? Are you including that into your picture? Are you being collaborative with all of that future self of you and collaborative with all that past self? Hey, past selves, what do you want to bring to the table? What do you want to make sure is seen and heard and gotten? What do you want to make sure, what needs do you have that you want to make sure get met? What learnings did you have that you want to make sure that we, stay attuned to and aligned to, because that was important learnings. And again, not entrenched, stuck in like, things have to be then this way going forward. No, it's just, what do you need? What do you need to include? So include it all on the table. Have a collaborative relationship with yourself. Try on a collaborative relationship with yourself. Set a weekly meeting with yourself, every Sunday afternoon. Have a collaborative meeting with all the parts of yourself and just check in. How are we at? Anybody have anything to offer? What are we up to? Where are we growing? And, what can we acknowledge ourselves for? What can we celebrate? Woohoo! What do we want to account for that maybe we missed the mark? That, is there any learning and growth that needs to happen? And I find when we step out of a competitive nature, especially competitive outside of ourselves, like where we go comparing to the people around us and competing to the people around us, and we just come back to our own lane and we're in this collaborative relationship, we can actually be with the good, the bad, the ugly. Like really, like it's only us. So, you like admit to yourself, like what didn't work this week? Like, whoa, what kind of growth do I need? What kind of learning do I need? What kind of skills would really make a difference here? What would have my back? And again, this is just with yourself. So you're not comparing to anybody else. This is entirely, your own journey, and you get to say. And I find when we bring that collaboration, we give ourselves more room to really be a true, authentic version of ourselves, where we really meet ourselves with grace and understanding and compassion, because it serves us and gives us more communication and information about ourselves and where we're going. So we get to really almost have more reach and room to play in our lane, because our lane opens up and becomes all of ours. We're not, worried about overtaking somebody else's lane or putting our time and attention over on somebody else's lane. It's like, this is our lane. That's it. I'm putting my focus here. This is what matters to me. This is what I'm up to. And give yourself the freedom to just be you in your lane with what matters to you. This is your life. It's, your one and only life in this time, in this body, in this meat sack of human, and it's limited. And what do you want to get up to? What does matter to you? And taking your time, energy, and effort, like your resources, your energy resources, and utilizing them and investing them into yourself, versus putting all of that on what other people are doing or comparing yourself up or competing over there. Like, come back to your lane and spend your energy, time, and effort over where you are in your lane, and be you. Please be you to your fullest version of you. My belief and philosophy is each of us has some real value to offer, and you have something. You have real value to offer. And by you being you, the authentic version of you, your essence, your life force, your interests, your pizzazz, like, please, like, be it to your fullest form, with love, compassion, kindness, like interdependently in form, in your lane, being the best version of yourself, or the favorite version of yourself, your favorite version of yourself. Like, invest in that. Collaboratively invest in your favorite version of yourself. Anyways, that conversation is a conversation, collaborative versus competitive. And then take a look at the more often we cultivate a collaborative relationship where we are with ourselves. Again, wherever we are, there we are. And the more we invest in our internal state being a certain something. So if your internal state does become more naturally, inherently a collaborative space, you might find that expands your skills and tools in collaborating with others. So then your relationships around you start to become collaborative. You get to include yourself, and you're also including the people around you. Like, it does become a we're in this together kind of world, versus we're up against each other and competing against each other. And again, there are great places for competition. Competition does have its own value, but when it's brought in and used, not necessarily when it's the overarching theme, in my opinion. So, in my opinion, it's worth the investment. Investing in collaboration, investing in a collaborative relationship with yourself expands into a collaborative relationship with those around you, and a collaborative relationship with life and with the world and with humanity. And I think there's a lot of value there. So there you go. Collaborative versus competitive. And it's ha ha ha, because that's almost like a competition statement. But they do both have value. They do both offer something. And dig in and find out for yourself what's your preference, what really has your back, what really serves you, what really works with you, what really gives you the freedom to be you in your fullest self-expression, in your favorite self-expression, where you are proud and you close your eyes at night being like, oh, filled up with joy for the human you are and the life you have. What one really does serve you, because this is your life. So go and cultivate a relationship that makes a difference. Cultivate a relationship that has your back, and cultivate yourself in a way that gives you your future that you can't wait to live inside of. So with that, I will say, enjoy your day. Thank you for listening, and see you next time on For the Sake of Ourselves. Bye.